But a lot of those items are just placeholders. Since the new regime has started, I'm heading this up as chairman. I just wanted to include things that so that people would be aware of things that are in the pipeline or things that we should have been doing, but we haven't had the bandwidth to do it as a result of lockdown and as a result of the work that we've all had to do on the viaduct application. So as I say, I'm hoping that we can get through this agenda fairly quickly within the time that we have allocated. Okay, so let's move on to agenda item number 1, to receive apologies for absence. Angie?
I've received apologies from Councillor Vesma and Councillor Manns.
Okay.
Councillor Egan's just joined us as well.
Okay, oh great. Okay, so to move on to item 2, which is to receive any declarations of interest and written requests for dispensations. Members are invited to declare disclosable pecuniary interests and other interests in items on the agenda as required by the Ledbury Town Council Code of Conduct for members and by the Localism Act 2011. Note that members seeking advice on this item are asked to contact the monitoring officer at Herefordshire Council at least 72 hours prior to the meeting. Do we have any declarations of interest?
No.
No, okay. So to move on to item number 3, which is public participation. Members of the public, who hopefully will be watching this online, are permitted to make representations, answer questions and give evidence in respect of any item of business included in the agenda. However, you will not be able to raise questions via the live stream, and therefore should have any questions you wish to raise in this meeting on any of the items on the agenda, please send your questions, comments to the clerk no later than 4:30 p.m. on the day of the meeting. Angie, have we had any questions submitted?
Yeah, I've had not a question, but an inquiry from Griff Halliday. He was inquiring about how you're going to, how you intend to proceed with town marketing and tourism, and he has expressed an interest in being on any working party that is set up in respect of that.
Okay, well that's good. I think as you'll see from the agenda, working parties is item number 6, so we'll get onto that fairly shortly. Okay, so if we can move on then to the minutes. Item number 4, to approve and sign as a correct record the minutes of a meeting of the Economic Development and Planning Committee held on the 11th of June 2020. That's pages 1026 to 1030.
I had a look at these. I'm willing to propose they're a true record.
I could second that.
Okay, so if we can take a vote on those. Councillor Harvey?
Yes, as a point of information, if you like, under the minutes, for anybody who hasn't picked this up or watches the live stream later. We do have the Household Waste and Recycling Centre open now, which was the last but one item on the agenda last time. So that's been open since yesterday, I think, with an online booking system, or you can, if you haven't got access to the internet, you can telephone into customer services central telephone number at Herefordshire Council and get a time slot booked. Feedback from yesterday was that worked really well and worked well today. No queuing problems, so it may be that the booking system doesn't stay in place for very long, but it is there at the moment just to manage things safely.
Oh, that's excellent. Yeah, yes, Dee.
I was at the tip yesterday, booked my slot, and I can agree with Liz. They were allowing 5 in on a certain time, 15-minute slot. There was no long tailbacks of traffic. It was brilliant. It was brilliant.
Cool.
Excellent. Can we have the vote then on that, Angie?
Yep. Councillor Harvey?
Yes.
Oh, no. Councillor Howells?
Yes.
Councillor Bannister?
Yes.
Councillor Eakin?
Yes.
Councillor Knight?
Yes.
And Councillor Morris?
Yes.
Thank you. Unanimous?
Good. So now we move on to the governance section, item number 5, terms of reference for this committee. So if you want to look at pages 1031 and 1032. I guess if I can kick off the discussion on this is clearly if you take a look through the agenda of this meeting, we've got lots of issues on here: NDP, traffic management, devolved systems, corporate plan, town market, charter market development, etc., etc. There's a lot of issues which come under really the economic development part of this committee. But if you look at these terms of reference, we've got items 1 to 9, which are almost all about planning. And then when we come on to the second section of the terms of reference, we've got a little bit about, well, basically, what have we got there? 4 items. So we've got 9 items in the first section, all to do with planning. Then we've got 4 items, which are very broad. For example, to make recommendations on any issues that have a financial and or staffing implication for the town council. That's number 1. Number 2, to make recommendations regarding opportunities to encourage investment in the town. Number 2. To make recommendations on policies in support of local businesses. Number 3. And to contribute to formulation and implementation of the corporate plan. So I think it's lacking. And I think in view of the activities that we've got on our agenda, we do need to update these terms of reference. I don't know if anyone has any comments on that.
That's exactly what I thought, Chair, as well. I'm mindful of Councillor Morris is always reminding us that we should do marketing and promotion, and there isn't anything that actually specifically says that. And when I read it too, I had exactly the same comments as you. The major part of our business comes under those bottom 4, really.
It does.
Well, the planning is important, but in terms of forward-thinking projects, all the working parties, all the different things we do, they're not properly represented in those last 4 items. So I would agree it needs a review, and I propose that we do that.
Okay, so the question is, how do we carry out a review? Are we going to discuss that here in detail, or shall we spend some time as a group to consider?
Yeah, Councillor Harvey wants to speak.
Oh, sorry, I
That's
can't
okay.
see. Can't see it. Can't.
Do you want me to? How would you like me to indicate? Do you want a participant's sort of blue hand up, or?
No, if you can just put your hand up, that'd be fine. It's just that I didn't have you on my image at that time.
Okay, I think
I've got you now.
That's okay. It's better if you go to the tiled view because you can see everyone at the same time. I mean, I'm very happy for us to undertake a review. I think we probably need to have terms of reference that the committee is working to in the interim. So it may be a case, and it's for the clerk to guide us on this, of adopting what we've got, but saying that we are going to undertake a review of it, and this is a holding position because it's part of what we have to do annually as a committee. In terms of undertaking a review and the purpose of terms of reference, the changes in terms of the detail of what we do and the reflecting the changing priorities, I'd be expected for that to be in the corporate plan, which is a living document we adopted at the annual council meeting a couple of 3 weeks ago, and is something that we will continue to review and refresh. One of the good things about that is that it allows things like terms of reference to be fairly static documents, and I see those 4 points towards the back end of the terms of reference as being very broad, but giving us the flexibility to do things in documents that you would expect to be more dynamic. And if we're going to be using the corporate plan in order to prioritize what we do, if there isn't anything that is precluding us from acting in a particular way whilst within our in our terms of reference, whilst remaining within our powers, maybe the place to do it is what we put together as the committee work programme for the coming year, and we just reflect on the terms of reference to make sure that they give us the flexibility to do what we want to do in the corporate plan. And it may be because we haven't had the terms of reference reviewed with a corporate plan in place that we find things that we do need to tweak in the terms of reference. But I would encourage us to try and keep the bits that change and are dynamic to the town's needs and to our capabilities as a council to be in one place, if you like, rather than sort of making the terms of reference too detailed. I think it's useful for them to be broad, to give us the scope to do in the corporate plan what we want to.
Yeah, I take that point. I think my view is, though, that if we take a look at on planning, for example, it's not broad, it's quite detailed. So we've got a dichotomy between these two sections. I think I would agree that item 2, for example, is so broad that we could interpret it that all of the activities that we're looking at under this committee could fall under that. But somehow I'd like it, personally, I feel that it does need tweaking. We do need to have something in here which reflects on these other sort of business development activities that we're hoping to get involved in for the town. So the question is, how can we do that?
Okay, the whole idea about having these annually, you have them at your annual meeting,
Yeah.
and then they get put to each committee to have a look at and make sure you're happy with them for the foreseeable year.
Yeah.
The forthcoming year.
Yeah.
There may be tweaks you want to make to them, which you can do as a committee tonight if you want. However, listening to what's being said here, potentially you may want some bigger changes, and you won't know what you want until you start looking at your corporate plan in more depth.
Yeah, I see that.
So maybe there's a different way to do this. If you're going to have a group that looks at the corporate plan, or however you're going to look at your corporate plan, you could incorporate the terms of reference into that discussion to see where you need. But they will have to come back to this committee, and they will have to go back to full council.
Yeah, I just think that sounds like it's going to take a long time. And I'm anxious to make sure that as far as the operation of this committee is concerned, the things we have on our agenda that you can see on this meeting don't fall outside the remit of this committee according to these terms of reference. Are we all happy that that would be the situation? Is my question.
Harvey?
Yeah, that seems a good idea to me. I was going to suggest there are a couple of agenda items. The next one, which talks about working parties, and there's one on town marketing and tourism. Those parties could perhaps be given a task to look at seeing if you wanted to enhance it in any way or not, to report back to the next meeting, as a thought.
A good idea, Phil. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I like that in the sense that each of those working groups can report back specifically on what it is doing and how that activity could be represented or described in the terms of reference.
Yeah.
I think that would be a good idea.
If you set up working groups, they should have a degree of terms of reference for themselves as well. So it's quite clear what powers, if any, they have, which usually they wouldn't. So you'd have to have some sort of working terms of reference for each working party to say where they feed back to as well. So they will have to have their own set that will feed into your committee.
Yeah. Okay, so that's a way to generate.
Councillor Harvey has got something to say.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor Harvey.
I'm just wondering how you know, however you want to manage it in terms of indicating, Chairman. You know, I'm happy to go along with, but it's you know, it's for you to say how you'd like us to indicate for you know, sort of speaking in the order that you call us.
Well, if I can get everybody on the screen, the method that we're using at the moment would be great, but I don't seem to be able to get that.
What kind of device are you using?
I'm using an Apple Mac.
Yeah, that'll.
So I would suggest that if you want to speak, please indicate verbally that you want to speak, and then I can bring you in.
Chair.
Yep, go ahead.
Thank
Nick.
This has been going on for an awful long time. I mean, I've only been a councillor for 6 years, and I think it's been going on before my time. We're going to dump a whole load of work on the clerk and her staff, and I think that's why it's been resisted up till now. I don't think the clerk is wanting to resist more work, but it is her role and responsibility, and we can talk an awful lot, but actions now have to be taken. The town is possibly going to become a ghost town like many other towns up and down the country. I think we've got an awful lot going in our favour, and we need to jump on something and move forward quickly, enthusiastically, and excitedly as possible. I think it's the most enjoyable aspect of the town council's work. I find finance rather tedious, excuse me, but we are responsible for the future of the town, and however we do it, it has to be done soon and, as I say, enthusiastically. There's the town plan working group, party, whatever it's called itself, that has carried an awful lot of evidence over the years of meeting and talking and wanting to push the town forward. And I just think we have to have topics, and we have to decide how we're going to move on them.
Yes, I agree. Councillor Knight.
What I've seen, I believe that the clerks and the staff are really doing a lot of work, holding a lot of conversations. You know yourself, John, we're holding conversations about this. No disrespect to Nick at all, I understand where he's coming from, but I think there is a lot more taking place now. We're a lot more forward than we were a few years back. And like you say, John, we're discussing things tonight. We're discussing things next Thursday when it's on my agenda, shall I say, the markets and everything, for us to cover everything and get these working parties moving. I understand that, what Nick's saying, but I think the clerk and the staff are doing quite a lot of work as well in the background with it. I do. That's what I find.
Okay, Liz. Councillor Harvey.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I mean, the item that we're on is terms of reference for the committee. So if there is some concern that the terms of reference that we currently have might constrain us in some of the things that we want to do, it's possible to defer a decision on this until we've gone through the agenda to the point where we've looked at the corporate plan, or we've decided how we're going to tackle the corporate plan, and deal with the terms of reference in the context of the debate that we have under that item. If the terms of reference have been adopted by full council from the annual council meeting, we are effectively sort of covered by them now. So if committee members would like to see how the debate goes on the rest of the agenda items, it would be possible for us to defer this until later on in the meeting and take it at a more appropriate point when we've had the discussion on the other things.
Okay, Matthew.
Yeah, there's been a lot of mention of the role of working parties in all this, in having them, meet, discuss their own remit and capacity, and come back to us with recommendations about the terms of reference. And I remember at the annual council, we talked about moving quite a bit of the committee's work onto working parties, so that these meetings could be more streamlined, with with more done in advance, in less formal settings. I was wondering if maybe this could synergize with that, if you know what I mean. If we could focus on putting some of this committee's work onto working parties, rather than trying to expand our if perhaps the more general terms of reference we currently have could stay, but the more specific work on them we could set up working parties to do.
Yes, I agree. Can we have someone to propose then that, have we got a proposal that would cover that says we can operate under our current rules, our current terms of reference, but working parties would, one of the responsibilities that the working parties would have would be in making their contribution to how they think that their activities could be represented in the terms of reference.
Yeah.
If that's a proposal, I'll second it. If it's not, then I'll make it.
Okay. Can I second that then from the chair?
Yeah.
Okay. Can we have a vote on that then, Angie?
Yeah. Councillor Harvey?
Yes.
Councillor Howells?
Yes.
Councillor Bannister?
Yes.
Councillor Eakin?
Yes.
Councillor Knight?
Abstain.
And Councillor Morris?
Yes, of course.
Okay, so it's 5-4, one abstention.
Okay. Okay, so we now move on to item number 6, working parties, page 1033.
Councillor Harvey's indicated she wants to say something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. The working parties that we've got, I mean, clearly some of them are important to continue. What I was going to suggest was that the Charter Market and Market House development be brought together under one item, because they're effectively about the same physical space, and the way in which we use the upstairs of the Market House is to a degree constrained by its accessibility for some uses, but it may be that rather than having 2 separate working parties, it would actually be helpful to combine those 2. And as far as devolved services were concerned, perhaps a name change, that if we're going to be undertaking you know, discussions with our sister market towns through the Market Towns Forum, and with Herefordshire Council, and with stakeholder and sort of partner organisations in the town on how we work, you know, in a more joined up way together, and how we as a council support the groups locally in doing what they feel is appropriate at a local level. That perhaps something like looking at cooperative working or partnership working, which would be a slightly more sort of strategic piece of work for a working group to do, would be a better and maybe a more understandable description than calling it devolved services.
What was the wording you had there?
Either
Liz?
cooperative working or partnership working, you know, or progressing cooperative working or partnership working, because I think, you know, as a town council, we don't do everything. We haven't got powers to do everything, and quite a lot of the things that we can do can really help other groups to do more themselves through, you know, assisting with supporting external grant applications, and, you know, just opening doors and that sort of thing. So you know, and it might also cover some of the things that we've talked about previously, which is actually having a more formal engagement and a more positive engagement with groups like the Ledbury Places, which takes responsibility for the heritage buildings, and obviously we've got a responsibility ourselves in that area.
Okay, Nick.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, I was so thrown by Liz's suggestions and things. The thing that worries me, first of all, is that I've heard, not whispers, but that the council are trying to find new people, new traders to join us for the charter market on Tuesday and Saturday. This doesn't seem to be progressing, and I'm wondering whether Clark would be able to share with us who they've contacted and what people's responses are, and why this wonderful town isn't attracting more traders on Charter Market Tuesday and Saturday. The other thing, the last point that Liz made, was that there is an awful lot going on in the town, of which I think we all know some of, but we don't all know all of. And I'd like to very briefly share with us, or share with you, the few things that are going on that are really important to the advancement of the town. First and foremost, Ledbury Places and the Poetry Festival are itching to move into the Barrett Browning Institute. There's Ledbury Places that are doing new information boards in the Heritage Centre. There's the replacement of the bells in the church tower, and there's all the work that the Civic Society is doing. And I don't know whether I'm right in thinking that some of us know some of it, but not all of it. So I'd like all those things to be bullet points of, you know, what can be discussed and how we can join up together, all of us. And I'm hoping that the mayor will instigate, once this crisis, COVID crisis, is over, a get-together of all the good people in Ledbury in the Burgage Hall that we all know has been redecorated, and see whether we can have a sort of integrated communication and sharing of what's wonderful about Ledbury and where we're going. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
In answer to your question about the charter market, I would differ with you slightly. We haven't got all of our usual traders back yet, and that is purely because they don't all want to come back yet because of COVID. They do want to come back, but some of them are biding their time. We have a new trader on Tuesdays who has started coming, and we have a new trader coming this Saturday. We also have a trader who comes on a Tuesday who potentially is considering coming to us on a Saturday, which he's not done previously. The traders are talking to each other at different markets and saying, come to Ledbury, and that's where some of them are coming from. We're putting things out there as much as we can, and also the traders are doing that with us. So we are getting a few more back.
Okay, Councillor Knight.
I could just verify what Angie has just said, because I've spoke to people from Hereford who have also heard about the new changes and everything, and the people that we're speaking to that I know, Livy and Angie herself, have contacted, and they are all still a bit wary, but they are looking at in August coming back quite a few. Thank you.
Okay, sorry, I was losing sound there. I think
Councillor
that
Harvey would like to speak.
just hang on a minute, I'm losing sound here. Okay, Councillor Harvey.
Yeah, Chair, could I just bring us back to the agenda item, please?
Yes,
Which
yes,
is
no.
the standing up of working parties. It's not the only opportunity that we have in the year to do this. We can set up working parties at any time. I suggest that maybe what we should be doing here is identifying the working parties that we believe ought to, you know, we're inheriting for this new year, which ought to continue, whether there's any reformatting of those that we want to do now, or whether we adopt the ones that we feel are important to be active right now, and we leave the others until we've got some view of what our work programme is going to look like with the corporate plan, and stand up working parties to, you know, additional working parties to align with that.
Yeah, I think that's a very sensible way forward. So I think what we should do is let's look at the working parties that we've got listed here, and there are a couple more to add to that Angie has made me aware of. So at the moment we've got neighbourhood development plan, we've got traffic management, charter market, market house development, devolved services, and then added to that we've got climate change and town marketing and tourism. So that's a lot. So what is the view about these? I think that Councillor Harvey's suggestion of putting the charter market and the market house development as one item, operating as one group, sounds a good idea.
Yeah.
Are we agreed on that?
Yeah.
Yes.
So
could we possibly add the town plan working group to that working party? Councillor Harvey's going to say no. Thank you.
Sorry, it's not me saying no. We have on a number of occasions invited the town plan group to become a working party of the town council. But when we have done that, they have expressed a preference to remain very strongly linked to us and to be, you know, working with and alongside us, but they feel that there is benefit to them, you know, being separate from the town council. And I don't think we can force them to do it. We can extend the invitation once again, but history says that they quite like it the way it is, and they do provide us with, you know, reports and suggestions and recommendations. What I would say on the extra two working groups is that as far as town council responsibilities are concerned, as far as climate change as a topic, we've got more responsibilities in terms of our green spaces, investment in disease-resistant planting in our woodland, you know, and those sorts of things than, you know, pure economic development. It may be that one of the things we need to consider is whether there's a very strong overlap, or actually properly a balance weighted more to the responsibilities of environment and leisure than economic development and planning. Climate change is something that at county level there will be planning policies associated with that, but in terms of our own responsibilities at parish level, it may be that the most impact that we can have in the context of climate change is going to be on the E&L side of things. I just sort of flag that, but we do have, you know, an agenda item later on about tourism and town promotion, and I'm not seeing that represented in the working parties that we have at the moment, and I very much take on the you know, the passion and the concern that Councillor Morris has expressed about us needing to, you know, fulfill a role there in conjunction with other groups, really strong stakeholder groups like the traders who are, you know, building an increasingly powerful voice, and, you know, the kind of destinations that we have local to us who bring people to the town. So maybe that's a way of, you know, really hitting the ground running with a working party that can take some initiatives forward that might even have an impact within, you know, this this sort of tourist season.
It's okay. So, we've got to move on this item. So what?
Chair, I had my hand up.
Sorry, Philip, I missed you there. Go ahead. But we need to move on fairly quickly.
No, I was going to make the point that we should separate outside bodies from working parties. I think we got a bit confused between those two. As Councillor Harvey quite rightly says, the Traders Association, for example, is an outside body that wouldn't want to be a set up working party, but they'd be quite keen to be involved in helping with the charter markets. So there is, as Councillor Morris says, a lot of cross relationships that can be achieved here. But I think we should distinguish between them. A working party is some generic stuff that we do, I would say, as a committee, whereas outside bodies have a specific interest in a particular community activity. And I think those are the differences. And it doesn't, so some of those outside bodies might want to sit on some of the working parties, for example, like I just mentioned.
Yeah, I wasn't considering for a moment that we should be taking over the town traders. What I was saying was that they were an outside body,
yes,
that were a strong stakeholder in town, you know, tourism and visitor promotion, and should have a voice.
I was agreeing entirely with you. That's exactly my point too. Yes, they should have a voice, and they might want to be involved in some of our specific working parties, but we should have a small number of generic ones, and as necessary liaise with outside bodies that might want to be part of those.
Yeah. Okay, can we now move on then? I think we need to move this item on in the way that what we have here is a group of suggested working parties. Now, these working parties can, once they're formed, or when in the process of forming them, they can work out a lot of these areas, how they're going to operate, what groups they can invite in. It will be up to those working parties to develop themselves by adding members to their group. So I think we need to move forward on this, and maybe I could ask, I need to ask councillors here, who want to be involved in these various groups. So working party. So what I would suggest is we take the neighbourhood development plan, we take the traffic management, we take the charter market and market house development as one, as Councillor Harvey has suggested. We take devolved services. I suggest we use that name at the moment. We can consider changing that, or the group itself, the working group itself, can consider changes to that. We look at climate change, and we look at town marketing and tourism. Okay, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 working groups I suggest that we need volunteers from councillors to work in those groups and to, you know, start to develop those groups. So can we go through these groups and see which councillors want to be involved in them? So can we start with neighbourhood development plan?
Obviously, I'd like to.
So is that Liz?
Yeah.
Two of us, yeah.
Have we got anyone else? I think 2 is great because then we can start from there. We've got a lot of.
Can I remind you, Councillor Manns is also a member of the committee, so you could nominate him onto any of them if you wish.
Well, we
Just
can add,
so-
I think we can add people at any time.
Yeah,
can't we?
yeah.
So
Yeah.
Councillor Manns can add himself at
He
the.
can add himself. Yeah. What I'm trying to do
Yeah.
through this item is to get, you know, at least 2 names to each of these working parties. Then we can then they can take it forward.
You have 2 people.
So we've got 2 people on the neighbourhood development plan. Okay. What about traffic management?
I'll go on that.
Okay. So that's Matthew. I've been chairing that for what that was worth last year. So I'll continue to be on that as well. So that's 2 of us for that one. Can we move on to charter market and market house development?
Thank you, I'd like to.
John,
Just hold
and
on.
I'll chair that one if you want me to, John.
So we've got Councillor Knight, who wants to go on the charter market and market house development, and
Councillor Morris.
Councillor Morris.
Yes, please.
Okay, so we've got 2 councillors for that. Devolved services. Councillor Knight, have you got your hand up for that one?
I just wanted to know more about that one. That's what I was asking the question.
We'll come. I think we can discuss that a bit late. I think we've got an item discussing that later on in the agenda.
It may be useful to know what it's about if you're going to go on it.
Can I suggest that we don't stand this one up until we give it some jobs to do. I
Okay.
think, you know, without being clear on that, and that maybe we do the work program and you know, and come back to whether there's a working party that can take this forward in a couple of weeks, in a couple of 3 weeks time. What I would point out to the committee is that we all received an invitation for a sort of a discussion on economic recovery, which is bringing together the county council, the town council, ward members, you know, and it may well be that, you know, the sort of conversations that we have or start having through that will actually overlap with what this group could be taking forward for the on behalf of the committee. But please, you know, we need to be clear what the, you know, what
It
the
will be.
remit is.
Yeah. Okay, I'm happy to accept that. So we'll leave that one out at the moment. Climate change then, let's move on to that.
Yeah, I'll be on that one, John. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Knight. Anyone else
Oh,
interested in being on that one?
I'd be quite interested in that as well, yes.
Okay, that's Philip.
Thank you, Liz. Thank you.
Okay, sorry. All right, so town marketing and tourism.
Thank you.
Love to be.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, so we've got Councillor Knight, we've got Councillor Morris, and we've got, have we got anyone else on?
Councillor Howells.
Oh, we've got Councillor Howells as well. Okay, so that's that one.
And we've also got Griff interested in as a.
And we've
member
got
of the public.
Griff in there. Yeah. Okay. So can we consider that item as completed at this point?
Excellent.
And those working parties will be obviously responsible for developing their remit anyway. So, okay, so can we move on then? to planning consultations, item 7.
So, Chair, can I just ask a question?
Yes, go ahead, Councillor Howells.
We've obviously got 6 working groups. They need to be in place. Are we assuming that one of the council will be act as a chairman? Are we going to appoint the chairman to do it? Somebody needs to set them up and get them going. Otherwise, they won't.
Well, we've got. Isn't that something that when these groups meet, they can make that decision? Who wants to be chair?
Somebody's got to be responsible for doing that. Are we suggesting the clerk would set a date and invite are we suggesting one of the councillors takes the responsibility to say, right, I will set one up?
What, the working parties?
Yeah. Wouldn't it be
I'm willing to chair the charter market. I'm willing to chair that one.
Dee, I think something's wrong with your microphone.
Yeah, I couldn't hear that at all.
Bandwidth.
either?
Yeah.
Try again.
Try again, Councillor Knight.
I said I'm willing to chair the market. I'm to chair that one.
The normal way to do that is you'll set your chairs up on your first meeting
Yes.
of those working parties, so you can make those decisions as a group. I think I've got a couple of councillors on each group. Do you want members of? I'm taking it you want members of the public to come and join you on these committees, on these working parties.
Absolutely.
I think we need to, after tonight's meeting, get a list out there of what we've got and invite people to join, put their names forward if they want to join those committees. Because obviously you've got a lot of people who are interested in NDP already, traffic management and the climate change. So I think, and then if the councillors who have been nominated for each of those committees want to email me, we can work out some dates for the first meeting and advertise that. Okay. If that's what you want to do.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely key to get members of the public on these. We just don't have the bodies around in the town council to be able to do all this work. So we do need to get members of the public actively involved in these groups. So that's going to be key once we've formed these, initially formed these working parties, to get information out there to the public and ask for people to join them. Absolutely key to do that.
Right. Okay, that's how we do it then. Fine. Sorry, I saw Councillor Harvey had a hand up, John.
So, okay, Councillor Harvey.
Yeah, sorry. We've already commented that, you know, one of the things that we would be hoping the working parties would do would be to get involved in helping to shape what the committee's work programme is for the coming year. So,
that's right.
You know, perhaps the first meeting that is held after we've advertised and, you know, sort of actively sort of canvassed, if you like, for people that we think might be, you know, or groups that might want to have representation on these, to have a single agenda item meeting where, you know, we just familiarise people with the corporate plan and the committee's area of responsibility within it, and to seek some views in terms of the priorities for the coming year for that committee, and then that can feed into what we do as a whole, because those working groups are not going to comprise everything that we need to do or that we could do as a committee, but they will have some views on very specific and maybe, you know, sort of fast, you know, acting pieces of work that they can be getting on with.
Yes, agreed.
Okay. So that would just set the ball rolling, bring everyone together to talk about something.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got a way forward on that one. If we can now move to the planning consultations, item 7 on the agenda. The first one on that one is 7.1, which is retrospective change of use of laundry and washroom to a bungalow Little Bush Pitch. Well, what can I say about this one? We know that there's a long and complex history of this, and perhaps in the first instance, Councillor Howells can tell us a little bit about it.
Yep, it's in my ward, and Councillor Harvey briefly early on about the position there, you say quite complex. There's a planning history going right back to 2005. It is a privately run travellers site. And I was confused about that because the only Herefordshire owned one is in Bosbury, but this is a privately owned one. And they were given permission in 2005 to set up a one family site and a touring caravan site as well. But over that time, they've evolved somewhat. And the complication is now that there's one outstanding planning application, which is to convert a building they built, which initially was set out to be a toilet and washing facilities group. And there was a little bit of confusion amongst the planners because the original pre-app was a small building, which is meant to be just that. The actual application and the bill was bigger. So it was meant to be about 12 metres and it ended up being 20 metres. And they've now attempted to convert that to a bungalow to live in. However, there's another planning application that's said extant previously, which is also to enlarge a detached building and make that a bungalow. And if they did that, then the numbers of sites which is suitable, which that site's being agreed for, will be too large. So there is still some discussion about how to tackle it. So, and also the complication was that the planning officer has been ill for quite a while. So I referred it back to Kevin Bishop. Said we'd like to reconsider that. There is a process to go through that before it's agreed to take it from delegated powers and be redirected. And I've got that information. I spoke actually to the planning officer who's only come back in the last couple of days, so he's still trying to find his way around it. But just to cut it short, what we've agreed is that he will now seek advice from the legal department because the suggestion is that they renounce the previous planning application, which takes a legal requirement to do because at the moment it's a live one. So they can then come back and the current one, which we're looking at tonight, which is a retrospective one, could then go ahead. But they can't do it until the original one is sorted. So he's going to get legal advice on that. And he's going to seek clarification on some of the issues, like there was some talk about a garage being involved with it. So it's a bit complicated. So he's going to get feedback on that as well. And also get some information about how it's redirected. So what I've agreed was until he gets back with that, I will recommend to this group tonight that we defer a decision until we get more information on those points.
So do we have, do we need to vote on that or are we happy to defer that?
Well, I'll propose that as a recommendation.
Do we have a seconder then for that?
I'll second.
Okay, so Angie?
Yep. Councillor Harvey,
Yes.
Councillor Howells,
Yes.
Councillor Bannister,
Yes.
Councillor Eakin,
Yes.
Councillor Knight,
Yes.
and Councillor Morris.
Yes.
Unanimous. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to 7.2. This is convert and increase roof space in living accommodation from side extension to form day room, create new front entrance porch and replace the existing attached garage. Increase car parking spaces from 4 to 5. This is Meadow Rise, Ledbury, Herefordshire, HR81LG. Looking at this one, I noted that there aren't any objections, although it does look like a fairly substantial rebuild, I have to say. But there are no objections to it. So can I propose from the chair that we accept it?
Second.
Okay, Angie?
Councillor Howells. Councillor Howells.
Oh, sorry. I thought, yes. Yes.
Councillor Harvey.
Abstain.
Councillor Bannister.
Yes.
Councillor Eakin.
Yes.
Councillor Knight.
Yes.
Councillor Morris.
Yes.
Thank you. It's 5.
Okay, so 7.3, proposed replacement dwelling land at Spindle Cottage, Upper Mitchell, Ledbury. This is at the, where's the Spindle Cottage? What have I got on this one? There's no objections to this one and there has been a letter of support. know if anybody has any comments or whether you want to take a look at it. It's failing that, I would say that we accept it.
I'll second that.
Okay, Angie, can we have a vote on that one?
Yep. Councillor Harvey,
Abstain.
Councillor Howells.
Yep.
Councillor Bannister,
Yes.
Councillor Eakin,
Yes.
Councillor Knight,
Yes.
and Councillor Morris.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, move on to 7.4, single-storey rear extension to replace existing kitchen and conservatory, Pick Hillock, Ledbury. On this one, no objections either have been raised. So from the chair, I would propose we accept it.
Second.
Councillor Harvey,
Abstain.
Councillor Howells,
Yep.
Councillor Bannister,
Yes.
Councillor Eakin,
Yes.
Councillor Knight,
Yes.
and Councillor Morris.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, 7.5, propose remodeling the existing garage roof to accommodate first floor extension to provide granny flat. South Lodge, South Parade, Ledbury. When I looked at this, I didn't see that there were any objections that had been raised on the Herefordshire portal. Do we have any comments on this one? And my only view was, well, it's described as a granny flat. Does that mean in actual fact it will be a granny flat, or will it be a place for rent? But can't say that that is should affect one's decision too much. So can I propose that we accept this one from the chair?
I'll second.
Okay, Councillor Harvey,
Abstain.
Councillor Howells.
Yep.
Councillor Bannister,
Yes.
Councillor Eakin,
Yes.
Councillor Knight,
Yes.
and Councillor Morris.
Abstain.
Okay. Moving on to 7.6. This is the removal of some trees which seem to be overhanging the road, the A449. I don't know, does anybody want to make any comment on this one?
Chair, I was going to ask the question about the different trees. Are there any tree orders? Do we know on any of these trees?
If you look at the end of the note, it
Yeah.
says works to trees covered by TPO.
It does say that, yeah.
Oh, I see. Right. Okay. Right. Yeah. Okay. Fine. I missed that bit. Looks like the address.
Right. So again, then, can I propose from the chair that we accept it?
I'll second.
Councillor Harvey,
Yes.
Councillor Howells,
Yeah. Being satisfied it's covered by. Yes.
Councillor Bannister,
Yes.
Councillor Eakin,
Yes.
Councillor Knight,
Yes.
Councillor Morris.
Yes.
Thank you, that's unanimous.
Okay, so moving on to item 8, planning decisions, which is pages 1043 to 1044. No, sorry, 1034 to 1042.
Chair, yes, I looked through all of these. It's a bit difficult trying to turn my head on my side because they're landscapes, so they're not.
Yeah.
You can change the orientation if you've got it open as a PDF. You can go to view and then rotate view is the first option, and if you just click the the clockwise option, it'll turn it the right way around for you.
Oh, you know, I should know that, shouldn't I?
Chair, for a moment, Councillor Harvey seems to be disappearing down the screen.
Oh, I like Chad. Okay.
Yes.
Don't worry.
Better, thank
we go.
you.
What?
So,
Sorry about that. I was looking at another document and I changed the angle of the screen to get rid of some reflection and I disappeared. Apologies.
Um, so are there any comments on any of these? Still quite a few no decisions.
There are a lot, aren't there?
There are, but you have quite a few have been approved through there.
Yes.
So it's
I
quite
know
a few are going to drop off. Yeah.
that was unusual. Normally, there's lots that haven't been. They must be getting through someone in lockdown.
Yeah. Well, so can I suggest we note these then, if we don't have any further comments?
Mm.
Yeah, I will second that. Oh, we don't need that, do you? Sorry.
Okay. So let's move on.
This is the fun one, isn't it?
So we're on item number 9 now, notification of virtual inquiry in respect of application number 171532, land north of the viaduct adjoining Orchard Business Park. Yes, well, we know all about this, don't we?
Some of us do more than others.
The important thing is that everybody else knows about it
Yeah, quite.
or gets to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Could I thank the staff in the office for getting the information up on the Town Council's Facebook page and for keeping the page that we have, the dedicated page that we have on the council website up to date. Could I request, as a matter of some urgency, if we haven't put it up today, and I haven't checked today, that we give some clear instructions on how members of the public can register to make a statement if they want to via the Planning Inspectorate.
It's all in a poster that Livy finished today. I believe she either posted it before we left the office or she would have done it when she got home. So I will check that it's on there, but if it's not, it'll be there first thing tomorrow. Yeah.
Okay.
I've just shared it. It's on.
Thanks.
Okay. I think, we probably, have we sent something to the Ledbury Reporter so that the information's coming out in tomorrow's paper?
Yeah, Councillor Bannister did an article for that.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. Hopefully people will see that and it'll be accurately reported. One of the things I was wondering, as far as our own preparation for this is concerned, we've fantastic that Councillor Knight's managed to get a sort of a public viewing venue sorted with the clerk on at the Oak. I think, as far as I'd just like to discuss with councillors who are involved in actually giving evidence, whether there would be some value, rather than us sitting at home, to actually be socially distanced in the panel room and using the town council's broadband, because we could all have a single version of the documentation in the room with us and could be supporting one another sort of off screen with sort of finding the right documentation pages and that sort of thing if one or the other of us is under cross-examination.
Can I just mention, recently when Councillor Howells, as the last thing he did as mayor, he came into the office to do a virtual signing of the covenant, the Armed Forces Covenant. We had real problems with the internet connection in the panelled room. When we did the practice run, it was fantastic. And I'm sure Councillor Howells will back me up on this. But when we actually came to do the event, it was horrendous. We had to wander around the office with my laptop trying to find somewhere. So I'm not 100% sure that's the best place to do it.
Okay, well, if not there, then somewhere with enough space to have all the documentation. I think, having given evidence at previous planning inquiries, just as a a third party and come under cross-examination as a consequence of that. I would attest to the the benefit of having some support in the room and some assistance with finding the relevant pages in the enormous core document pack. Having watched council officers who are experienced at doing this on the witness stand, it is very difficult to find the relevant pages when you are under cross-examination, and it isn't always comfortable. People aren't always comfortable just saying, look, I'm going to have to, sort of pause for a minute while I find the relevant paperwork. It's a tough thing to do when, everybody's sat there sort of clicking their pens waiting for you to answer. So, if everyone's happy doing it from home, fine. I'm just saying that it might be helpful to pool views and also to assist with, post-it notes and that sort of thing, to just sort of support one another in doing this.
Councillor Howells?
Well, yes, I think you all know that actually Councillor Harvey and myself are two of the four witnesses as councillors, and only today I had a conversation with the opposite number on Heritage, who's been a Heritage consultant for 20 years, and I'm sure you're the same, Liz. Your counterpart is a planning person who's been doing it for years, and they're experienced in running these inquiries, and we're on a learning curve to do them. And it became very obvious today when I was talking to my counterpart that actually it is, you don't want to be on a learning curve at the same time as being on the spot. And I've been trying to download today all the documents that were highlighted we need to have, and I've only got about halfway through, and I've got about 20 so far documents that somehow you need to have accessible. So I think the idea of being able to support each other and finding documents would be a good idea.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that the venue we've got for public participation will have more consistent and reliable internet connection, because obviously setting up a Microsoft Teams and be able to use it is something that if you're witnesses you need to be competent to do. And we have got a conversation tomorrow, haven't we, with all the witnesses on the last minute planning of how we do that. So that might be worth having a conversation then for those of us involved. But I agree with you, I think that'd be really useful.
Yeah, well, we have, yes, let's talk about it tomorrow, but then we've only got the weekend to sort it out. And having just set up a climate change working group, given the size of the document, the core document list, if it's running to over 40 pages of documents, some of which have got over 500 pages in them, I really don't want us each to be, sort of cutting down several trees to print out our own, our own versions, when we could have one version printed out and marked up and ready to go if we work in a, in a team-like way over the weekend.
But have different ones, of course, because the barristers marked up on the core document lists the different documents that each witness needs to have. So yours will be different to mine, for example, which are different to the landscape one.
Yeah, but there is some crossover in terms of the consequence of how some of the evidence and cross-examination go on the highways stuff that will need to be taken into account dynamically in how other aspects of the impact of the highways issues are dealt with for heritage and for planning.
Can I suggest, we've obviously given an indication for people listening and other councillors of just how complex this is, and we've given an illustration of that, but after tomorrow's meeting, I think it would be good if you and I and if other witnesses wanted the same, if we agreed how we do that together.
Okay.
Rather than today.
Happy to do that on a separate Zoom. I think the if we've got something coming out in the paper tomorrow, and let's hope that we don't get word salad from them. we actually send some emails out to make sure that, you know, people who have expressed an interest are aware that it's happening, and different ways in which they can watch it or participate if they wish to. And I think it would be good also to publicise what we've got as the agreed itineraries for the site visits, and to be clear with people that that won't be happening next week, but we will be notified as to when the site visits will be taking place, and can let people know then.
Yeah, and for the benefit of people listening, we've obviously been coordinating with people who've already said they want to take part as third-party witnesses, and there is a process for doing that. So if anybody wants to, they can still get in touch. But we've got 7 or 8, I think, at the moment. John, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, who we've been
Yes.
coordinating, getting their papers put together, and they can register in advance, which would be best if they could. But 11 o'clock on Monday is the time when they would certainly need to be available to register their interest, hopefully in advance, but they can do it on the day, I understand, if the inspector then allows to hear them. So they can be as late as coming 11 o'clock on Monday morning to the Royal Hall. Is that right, Clark? Angie?
Or online.
Or online. Yeah.
Or online, yeah.
Yeah.
So they can, up to the last minute, come and say they'd like to say something. Best if they can do it in advance, but they can come on the day.
Myself and Councillor Bannister will be at the Royal Hall from about 9 o'clock Monday morning, setting up. So if anyone wants to come in and let us know they want to register at 11 o'clock, we can, because I've got to provide a list to the planning inspector on Monday morning of anyone who wants to.
Yeah, with people having that.
Okay. Right, can we move on then to item number 10, which is review of outstanding major housing applications in Ledbury, pages 1045 and 1046. Now, I think the purpose of adding this to the agenda was really as a placeholder. We have got the Bovis application, there's Barrett's. What else have we got here? We've got Leaden Vale. So we've got, I'm not quite sure what application number 201998 is, proposed number 2.
It's Bovis.
Oh, no, that's the 64-bed nursing home. Okay, yeah. So basically, we've got Bovis, which is 140 house residential dwellings. We've got the extension of the Barrett's, which I see that's approved with conditions on the 12th of February. We've got yes, we've got the 64-bed care home, which we have approved. We have approved that previously, and we have Leaden Vale. So these are items that we've got to deal with once we've got some bandwidth. Councillor Harvey.
Yeah, I think we're missing a couple. We haven't got the one to the south of Leaden Way and to the east of the Dimmock Road, which is the triangle that is proposing to have a Lidl, a health centre and a nursery on it.
Yeah, we have got that on Dealey. Have we?
It's on there, yeah.
Leaden Vale. Dealey, item number 5.
5.
Oh, right. Okay. Good. Then the other one, which might have slipped under the radar, is that there is an alteration of the detailed planning application that was approved for the cricket ground.
Oh, yes.
Okay, yeah, that isn't on the list, right?
Yeah, and that's going through the approval process at the moment. I don't believe we've offered a view on that. It is something that is up for consultation at the moment on the council website. I don't know whether, because it's a variation of the detailed planning application, whether it's coming back to us or not. I think some of the issues that were encountered with the Little Bush pitch as a site and the planning history on it was that, you know, the planning approvals were given and then variations were approved under delegated powers by officers, which never referred things back toward members or the town council for comment. I mean, I would hope that we would be positive and supportive of the changes that are being proposed on the cricket ground. It's increasing the number of houses on the site slightly from 87 to 93, I think. But the big change is that the detailed planning permission was granted for a commercial, you know, a open market development with 40% of the houses on there being affordable. So
Yeah.
a mix of social and part rent, part buy, and the other categories of affordable agreed by the government. Because it's a social housing landlord who has bought the site for development, they've actually gone back to the county council and asked if the site can actually be 100% social housing.
Yes, not just affordable but social, which is amazing. There's a big difference.
So instead of getting something like either 14 or 17 social houses as part of the 40% affordable mix, we're actually looking at prospects.
93.
We're actually looking at 93. Yeah.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
That's
Yeah.
very good.
So, you know, I mean, it's been something that's been under discussion for a while with planning officers. Traditionally, they don't like to have developments that are 100% social housing, but seeing as so many of the market houses that are built now are being bought by people to then privately rent out, I didn't entirely understand what the difference was in, you know, building open market housing that then went into the private rented sector, or, you know, actually saying, do you know what, it would be better to keep it under a social housing landlord who has, you know, various responsibilities and, you know, sort of constraints on uplifting rent and all that sort of thing. So I think it's a very positive thing for the town, and to get effectively an extra 80 affordable social houses built on top of what we were expecting. You know, even if some, I mean, some of them may be part rent, part buy, but even so, that's good in terms of giving people a way of sort of stepping up onto the property ownership ladder when they can't initially afford the deposit for a mortgage. So I think it's quite a positive thing, but we do need to maybe have that on the list and say something about it, you know,
Yes.
say something nice or comment or whatever, you know, because it is a bit of a departure from the norm.
Yes, fully agree. So, Councillor Howells?
Yeah, I agree entirely with Councillor Hardy there. I think it's great to see the anachronism calling it affordable when it isn't, but social housing, got those, is excellent. Just to add 2 points. Item number 5, we noted that there was not an actual application, which is the Leaden Vale, the Little Medical Centre nursery. We had a notification as ward councillors only today, actually, that there has now been a hybrid application actually put in place. It'll be on the website shortly, I think. So there has actually been an application submitted now. So we noted that wasn't the case before. And I think we should add the current Ledbury Town Football Club, because that is it's an allocated site, and if and when the Town Football Club moves from there, that's something that's sort of in the process of happening, then that will come forward with a planning application for, I think, 38 houses sometime in the foreseeable future, that makes it worth putting on the list because it's an allocated site. And the last thing, obviously, we've got as item 1, as you rightly say, we've already got a working party set up to look at what will be Bovey's homes. And I know that's gone through the process of being, I think, under delegated powers, but we were going to look at whether the access was satisfactory or not, because it was a bit convoluted, if you remember. I don't think it was ever resolved, which is why we were going to set up a working party.
That's correct, yeah. So that does need some urgent attention. Councillor Harvey.
Yeah, could I just query? I mean, it's brand new information to me that the Ledbury Town Football Ground is an allocated site, but who's allocated it and where?
I'm pretty sure it's in the neighbourhood plan, actually.
Good heavens!
Yeah.
Really?
Well, the cricket club and the sites were the Viaduct site, cricket club, cricket ground, football ground. Those are the allocated sites. And then with Gladman's opportunistic view, that became included as well. And I think you'll find all those sites are those 4 in the neighbourhood plan. Unless I'm really very much mistaken.
I really don't think I really. I'll be horrified if I've missed that, because that is, yeah. I mean, I thought part of our problem was that we didn't have allocated sites in the neighbourhood plan, and that was one of the issues. The only one that we were actually proposing was the Market Street auction rooms for older persons housing, and that was taken out by the inspector because we hadn't the neighbourhood plan group hadn't provided any evidence that there was need for that and that consultation had taken place on it.
Yeah.
I don't remember that there's any allocation, and I'm sitting here going,
well, I'm looking at page 12 of the neighbourhood plan at the moment, and it's got 3 red areas, and it says approved stroke allocated housing. That's what it actually says in the plan, in the actual drawing I'm looking at. And there's the Viaduct site, which we just talked about, where the appeal is. The Gladman site, which is now Barrett's, that came in late, and that was actually included as an approved site. And then it's got another red triangle showing the wharf, which, as I understood it, included both the old cricket club and the current football ground as a site that was. It actually says approved stroke allocated on the diagram, and I always understood
is the football club included in our neighbourhood plan?
That land is, yeah.
No.
Well, actually, the square doesn't. It's just one square that covers that area. I always understood it included both those grounds.
No, there should be a gap between the edge of the cricket ground and the start of the cemetery.
It's a bit unclear from this. It just shows one big red area. It might just be the cricket ground, which is what you just talked about. I always understood both those were going to be built upon. That's always what my understanding has been. Certainly, the ground where we just talked about the social housing. That's definitely.
God, no, Philip, please don't say that. That's been a sporting facility in the town since
Yes, I know.
God was playing in the youth team. If not a boy.
Not owned by the football club.
But councillors, can I just say, we're here in this item, we're reviewing outstanding major housing applications in Ledbury. You're discussing here something that hasn't happened. It's not an application. So can we please move on?
Yes, please.
We'll
Wash our mouths out with soap.
We'll be coming forward for development, I can assure you.
God.
Okay, well, it's not
all of that. That didn't happen.
It's not happened yet, so it doesn't really come under this item.
Yes,
so
please, let's not,
Okay, so let's move on to item number 11, which is Hereford Council COVID-19 Emergency Response Active Travel Measures, pages 1047 to 51.
Isn't that supposed to be happening, the discussions we had? Isn't that supposed to be all putting in place this coming week? I thought it was by end of June they were going to start implementing the things they'd agreed and discussed. Is that right, Angie?
I've not had any confirmation as to when this is being agreed.
We had the consultation as town council, of course,
Yes.
which the cabinet were pains to point out the government said they didn't have to. They just implemented it, but the council did consult with us, although it was very short term. I think it's important to make that point. They didn't have to, but they did. And the idea is to get emergency traffic regulation orders in place in line with all the market towns and what they've agreed they'd be happy to accept. And here, I think we were talking about several things happening here, but the only thing now planned is to widen the pavement by where the charter market is, of all the potential ideas that were thought about for Ledbury. Just that one, I think there were 4 ideas, and that just that one, I understand it is happening, but I don't know a time scale.
Yes, that's as I understood as well.
I
Obviously,
understood it. Yeah, I understood it happening now. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got to agree with Philip.
but obviously there's been a lively debate and Ledbury Reporter Online and other places, and Ledbury Reporter itself about this. So it's going to be, I think we need to make sure we get the right kind of information out to people of what's going to happen when. But of course, we need confirmatory information from Hereford about when these works will start. And I would like to say, I think that we need to make sure that the widening of the pavement by the Market House is done, correctly. Because, we're anticipating improving the market. And so this could be an important part of it.
Can I just say, on
Angie.
page 1048 at the top, where it says, when will these measures be introduced? It does say that they anticipate measures will start to be introduced from the beginning of July.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we should just expect them to happen, from what I understand, because they've done a consultation, and I understood they decided in the end.
Yeah. This map showing the yellow 20-mile-an-hour zone is quite useful. It'd be quite good to get that up on the council website.
I think it already is on.
Is it already on there?
Yeah.
Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I mean, it is, the detail of this is on the council website, and in a sense, it's a shame we haven't got the detailed image of what's being proposed for the town centre. I don't know if the clerk will allow me to share my screen.
I think I think you should be able to share. I opened it earlier. Yeah. So
it isn't very well shown on the diagram that's in the the agenda papers.
Yeah, no, it isn't, and that's what I was worried about slightly.
So what was being consulted on was a pivoting of the parking along the High Street area, basically from the disabled bay end by Boots, so that a wedge of additional footway was created from the Market House, sort of narrowing down to the Boots end of things.
Yeah, that's right. Yes.
So this is different from the sort of the space model that was part of the infrastructure delivery plan, which caused a lot of consternation a couple of years ago. There are no parking spaces that will be lost as a consequence of just canting the parking spaces slightly. Actually, there will be more spaces created because we lose 5 or 6 of those spaces twice a week when the market is held, because those parking spaces have to be cordoned off for the market stalls to be placed on the public highway. The thinking at the Herefordshire Council end of things, and this was actually in response to a request that the Town Council made a number of years ago now, I think back in 2015, when there was an appetite to increase the apron around the market house to enable a larger market area off-road, that there would be enough space at least to take the number of stalls that we have on a Saturday, which is the larger of the two markets that we have that currently sit on the public highway, so that those car parking spaces would be available all day for shoppers to use. Given the rate of turnover of the parking spaces there, which is very high, people are going in and out of them all the time. It was estimated that that could create sort of 200 or more additional parking spaces per week. So, each of those spaces may be being used sort of 20 times during the trading day, which would create a lot more parking spaces free for up to an hour, although they're very rarely used for that long, right in the heart of the town. And it would give a bit of extra space for other uses and for social distancing. And of course, one of the things that the government's asking for at the moment is for pavement areas to be used to allow cafes and bars and so forth to put some seating outside so that they can socially distance. And it's not under this agenda item, but maybe it's something that we do need to look at as a council, is whether, if there is considered to be a need for this amongst the relevant traders in the town, that we might be able to use the area under the market house on non-market days as an area where people could sit outside with their undercover with food and drink that wouldn't be able to be consumed inside premises because of the constraints on social distancing. So anyway, that's the detail of what was being proposed on the parking. So actually, extra parking in the town.
Yeah.
And then if I can stop sharing that. How do I stop sharing that? Oh yes. And have a look at the agenda papers for anybody who's viewing this online. It will be quite small, but sharing the screen again. That's what's being looked at in terms of all the yellow, 20 miles an hour. The other areas that were being consulted on were making Church Street accessible only for deliveries and for cycles, so that it was effectively sort of a pedestrianised area between the British Legion and the market house. And the other one was creating a sort of a red tarmac safe pedestrian area along the little section of Woodley Road that goes to the town trail. Because that's one of the areas where people say they're reluctant to allow their children to walk to school, where they are needing to travel that section of road in order to get safely onto the town trail. So that's in this area here. The update that I have on where the county's at on this is that there is a decision that's been flagged as being about to be taken on this. I think it isn't implemented yet, but the feedback that I've had is that the town centre measures, the Church Street and the car parking, will not be taken forward at county level by at least in the first tranche of measures that get implemented, because there's been a significant number of objections coming from town traders to that being done. And it may be that the thing to do is to, have some further meetings and better communication with the traders, because I'm not entirely sure that everybody understood that it was actually going to be delivering more parking rather than less. And it may be that we also need to consult with our market traders, because a number of them have, despite our rules for the charter markets, have got into the habit of putting their vehicles behind their stalls. Although I think it does say in the, the sort of the working instructions for the market that doesn't happen. So obviously that might affect people's, trading and how they set up and that sort of thing. But it's academic at the moment, because the hoo-ha generated means that the county's saying, it won't go ahead with those for now, and it'll only be the 20 mile an hour and creating some safe tarmac for accessing the town trail.
And
Okay.
Chair, if I may just ask Liz, and not one way on By Street?
It was never going to be one way on By Street. That was a typical Ledbury Reporter thing. That was never something that was consulted on. It was never proposed. It was just a Ledbury
Right.
Reporter thing. I mean, you couldn't do it. It's a silly thing to do while we've got the fire engines in the middle of town. You'd prevent the fire engines from coming up By Street and being able to turn into the high street and go where they need to go. I mean, it's not an ideal location for the emergency service vehicles, but for as long as they're there, they have to be able to get quickly onto the road network, and it isn't sensible to send them down, Bridge Street and Lower Road, with the way the parking is down there.
Yeah,
So,
okay.
but that was never on the table. That was just, Ledbury
Right.
Reporter.
Thank you.
Okay. Can we move on then to item 12, which is correspondence received in relation to Leaden Vale proposal. That's page 1052. Can I suggest on this item that we just note it, because we know that the Leaden Vale proposal is on our list of things to deal with. Are we happy to do that, or do you want to look at go over this?
Well, I think for people watching, it's worth saying that the agenda item is correspondence from the Civic Society expressing concerns about what's being proposed and the impact of the proposal for another out-of-town supermarket, when the high street is just beginning to, sort of get back on its, get back going after lockdown, and querying whether a nursery and a doctor's surgery out of town is aligned with the plans for that the clinical commissioning group have got for certainly healthcare service provision in the town. I think the healthcare group that we've been liaising with, which is one of the spin-outs from the town plan, the clinical commissioning group have been indicating that they'd be very enthusiastic to continue sort of town centre provisions so that people can use the town centre car parks and, you know, be able to access very centralised healthcare services that we have as they're currently set up in the middle of town. And obviously that's reflected in the kind of discussions that are going on the neighbourhood plan to do with where, you know, a larger facility might be located or how a larger facility could be brought forward using the footprint of the existing facilities.
Yep. Okay, Councillor Howells.
There could be more discussion, but I propose we accept the recommendation, which is that members are requested to receive a note and take into consideration when the proposed development comes an application. And we know that there's now an application in, so it'll be coming to us shortly, I imagine.
Yes, I agree.
I'll second that.
Do we need to vote on this?
Just to receive a note anyway. So.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
fair enough. Okay, so let's move on. Affordable housing draft supplementary planning consultation. This is item 13, sorry. Item 13. We got a page number for that now?
It's on.
1053. It was a link.
Oh, it's a link.
But I did print you a copy out, but you didn't come in to get it today.
Sorry.
You've got a bit of time for response for this. So
can we put this down to our next meeting?
definitely. The deadline is midnight on Wednesday, the 5th of August for responses. So maybe worth spending a bit of time. It's quite a large document, and if you want to read it, then
yeah,
it's too much for tonight.
Okay, so we'll delay this item for our next meeting.
I think Councillor Howard would like to speak.
I've got
Okay,
it up in front of me now, following the link. It's 27 pages. As the clerk says, yes, it's open 24th of June and closes on the 5th of August. So it's not that long, but it is obviously something important we should look at.
Yeah, so maybe councillors can read that document and we take it forward at the next meeting. When is our next meeting?
I'm just
Oh.
checking that actually,
Can we-
because your
After
next
the
meeting is
deadline.
after this. What if you wanted to put comments in and I can amalgamate them? Depends what
Okay.
you want.
So
Councillor
councillors,
Harvey wants to speak.
Actually, this is quite an important
Yeah.
consultation.
it is.
The government, as the government does, is heading it up affordable housing consultation. But the sting in the tail on this, maybe, depending on your point of view, is that in encouraging additional affordable housing sites to come forward, they are also proposing a broader relaxation on, you know, sort of the commercial development as a quid pro quo. So it's been, I suppose, cleverly headlined in terms of the title, but the devil, as ever, is in the detail. We could, once the planning inquiry is out the way, look to, you know, sort of get together informally and propose, propose some options or some comments to go forward to the full council meeting that we've got scheduled for the 30th of July, or as the clerk suggests, make individual comments into the office to be collated and maybe reviewed by, you know, chair and vice chair to go out under the clerk's delegated powers.
Yes, agreed. That seems a sensible way forward. And it's really the only way we can.
That was an either or.
Yeah.
It's either meet and put something to full council on the 30th, or it's do it.
Yeah.
No.
Sorry, I meant the last one. Yeah.
Okay.
I think if we go by that, so if people put in their, comments to Angie.
What I'll do is I'll email the chair and vice chair tomorrow to sort out some time
Yeah.
to sit down and go through this.
Okay.
I was going to make a suggestion, Chair, if I could, to be constructive. The working party for the Bovis application should be meeting fairly soon in order to clarify the access. I was going to suggest if we could put that together fairly soon, it may be that this proposal could be considered then as well, and people want to talk about it. We could put a concerted effort together in how we respond.
Yeah, that seems a very good point. Happy to do that.
Sorry, could you just repeat the first part of that? Sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say that the working party for Bovis Group, it's about time that met.
Okay. Yeah.
Access. If we organise that fairly soon, we could also say to that working on that we met to also consider any council response to this document.
Okay. Good. So can we move on to item 14, town marketing and tourism, page 1053.
I've put that on there as an article that I was provided just to sort of stimulate a conversation, really.
Well, now we've set up a marketing and tourism group. This obviously comes under their remit.
It does.
That'll help nice soon.
So can we note that and
Send it on to that working party.
send it on to that working party to come back to this committee, having dealt with it.
Yep.
Okay, so moving on to item 15.
Before we move on, Chair,
Sorry.
if I may. Thank you, Chair. I'm so frustrated. We've been talking about this for so many years now. Last year's mayor and the clerk did make endeavours to try to raise some funds for a tourist brochure, and sadly it came to nothing. I think the only way that we can do this is by the clerk having a personal relationship with the eminent members of the locality who are likely to support this promotional material. It's not an easy task by no means. I understand, Mrs. Price, that you're inundated with work, but you want to say something, I'll let you interrupt me.
At the last meeting of EDMPL, you discussed possibly having a new map and also the possibility of looking into new guide, a town council guide booklet. I have had one Zoom conference with the company who distributed the map last time, but not the people who prepared it, because they were two different entities. And I'm hoping to set up some meetings with some other organisations to talk about how we can go forward with that. I know Councillor Knight wants to come in. So.
Yeah. Councillor Knight.
Okay. I just thought that when we set these working parties up, we discuss this and bring to the table then with the ideas put all together with outside people who want to join and have a say as well. So would it be better that we speak about it then when we've got the working parties together and outside people with their ideas?
And then whatever we've been doing in the office can feed into that as well. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Now we've got the group organised.
Yeah.
Hope it'll lead to some action. We just need to make sure that group does meet.
Exactly.
Yeah. Thank you.
Can I ask, I mean, there's been a budget item for 3 or 4 years now, and it's never been spent. Does that mean that we've accumulated all this budgeted money that can be spent eventually on this one item or not?
Can you remind me what budget heading that is? Because that doesn't ring any bells with me.
For tourist promotion?
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. Well, if you don't spend it at the end of the year, it goes into your reserves.
Right. So can we pull it out of the reserves if we want to?
If you wanted to, yeah. But like I said to you last time, if we go down the route that I worked with before, it wouldn't cost you a penny.
That would be very nice, but like it's going to involve an awful lot of, I mean, it might not cost in pounds a lot of penny, but it's going to cost in hours a lot of penny. Either you or the mayor having a relationship with people to sponsor. I mean, the last time it was really £750, but it seems like East Nor Helens needed to be prodded and poked and encouraged that it was worthwhile investing a mere £750 in 80,000 print run of this pamphlet.
The reason, the method I've been used to using in the past, and a lot of councils use this method, is we don't do the work. We get a company who does all the work for you, and whatever your map or your booklet, whatever you achieve at the end of it is paid for via the advertising, the sales of advertising to the traders and the organisations within the town. That pays for it. All we would have to do as a council would provide them a letter to allow them to show that letter to all the organisations to say they're acting on the council's behalf.
And is this Glide Media you're talking about?
No.
Who is the first talking
There's lots
about?
of I spoke to Glide Media last week. That's who I spoke to last week. But they don't do that because I asked him. But there are lots of companies out there that will do that for you. Standard practice for councils.
Okay, Councillor Knight.
Hello. Can I just say that use this again, as I'm saying, let's do this with the working parties to put all the ideas together, because I've really got to leave this meeting in about 10 minutes.
Yeah. We're going to be running over if we carry on.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Can we move on to item 15, charter market promotion? Really, it's the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's the same issue here. We've set up a working group, and let's let that working group get to grips with this task, come back to this committee, and then we can take it forward from there.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Okay. Right. Moving on to item 16, business and planning bill, pavement licenses, request for comments. Pages 1054, 1065. Well, I don't know what anyone thinks about this. This first document, page starting on 1054, seems to be a bit about markets objecting to pavement expansion and enhancements as part of the response to COVID-19. Am I right in that? I'm talking about the NAMBA, the Voice of Markets.
This is a group that we're a member of for the markets. And yes, you are correct. The last but one paragraph on the front page. While NABMA acknowledges that the government has introduced these new provisions to assist the food and drink industry, we are worried about the impact of significantly extending the outside area of food and drinks premises where such premises are in close proximity to markets.
And they're asking that members let them know how this is possibly affecting their markets.
Yeah.
I was trying to work out what we were expected to do. So we're members, did you say, Angie?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so we do need to respond as members. Okay.
So
you don't have to respond. You don't have to respond, but
as members.
It's pretty much London-centric, the whole document, by the looks to me. Councillor Harvey.
Yeah, I mean, it isn't London-centric because this is happening all over the country, as I said under the item on the walking and cycling measures, in Hereford, there are premises that are, seeking licenses to be able to extend the number of tables and having seating outside under heaters and umbrellas in order to be able to serve more customers in a responsibly socially distanced manner. That's happening in Hightown. If you drive through the centre of town, the Kerry, the big pub which is right on the junction of Commercial Road with the Bath Road and Blue School Street, has got a medium-sized area of outside seating and umbrellas that you can see just to the right of the building, and throughout town centres, that's happening. I was got in touch with by a local cafe who were seeking some assistance in getting a positive response from trading officers to their requests to extend the number of chairs that they were allowed to put with tables that they already had permission to have out on the street in order to be able to serve a few more people round those tables. I mean, obviously the pavements in Ledbury are sufficient in some areas and very deficient even just for pedestrians in others, let alone having the capacity to allow for seating on the pavement, which is one of the reasons why potentially outside of the market days, the extra bit of pavement by the car parking in the middle of town might have offered certainly the cafes in that area, and potentially one slightly further away, being able to say to customers, well, do take your food and drink outside, and you can sit in this area, and we'll come and clear up. That we have the area in our responsibility under the market house on the days when it isn't a market. It would maybe of assistance to those sorts of traders in the town to be looking at whether we could make that space available. But obviously on market days, that's very much there for market traders. So yeah. it wouldn't be a 7 day, it wouldn't be a 7 day or even a 6 day a week thing. I think this letter is associated with street markets that are there every day, right, yeah. And the market traders are concerned that they will not be able to operate in a responsible, socially distanced manner if the pavement areas adjacent to the markets are encroached upon by tables and seating and umbrellas and heaters and all the rest of it for cafes and pubs in the area. So I think that there is scope for businesses in parts of the town to want to maybe extend onto the pavement, but I think also we're quite lucky with a lot of our pub and cafe premises actually having outside seating areas that they can use already. I mean, I know the Malthouse is doing a takeaway service and serving people in their out their garden area. Some of the other cafes are not quite as fortunate. It's not pavement stuff is going to be an issue in parts of the town, maybe more in the Hom End area than the High Street. But there could be pubs that that would like to sort of extend onto the pavement, as well as having areas beer gardens out the back. But whether we consider that to be reasonable, or Herefordshire Council considers that to be reasonable, is another matter.
Yeah, can we just pause? I know you want to speak, Philip, at the moment. Can we just pause there, because we're going to need to suspend standing orders. Angie?
Yeah, how long do you want to suspend them for? Need a proposal. Do you think you're going to finish this in 30 minutes?
Yes, definitely. So I propose 30 minutes.
I'll
Seconded.
second
Okay, vote for that then, please. Councillor Harvey,
Yes.
Councillor Howells.
Yeah.
Councillor Bannister,
Yes.
Councillor Eakin,
Yes.
Councillor Knight,
that. Yes.
and Councillor Morris.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Philip, go ahead.
Just to move progress on this item and doing what Liz said. I think that when we had the Traders Association, we actually went round with the mayor, as you know, last weekend, opening pubs and cafes. I'd like to suggest that we take this on the delegate with Dee to the Traders Association to their next meeting, and put it to them. They might like to consult with some of their members to give us feedback so we can respond. There isn't a time limit to it, but that to move on, that would seem to me to be a good way of getting some feedback from the actual people themselves. And the Traders Association are growing their membership all the time, and they have quite a lot of pub and cafe members, so it'd be a good group to consult with in it, I think.
Okay. Fine.
Is there a seconder for that?
I'll second it from the chair.
Okay, Councillor Harvey,
Sorry, can you just clarify what the?
I propose that we take it to the as one of the delegates from the council with Dee to the Traders Association when they have their next meeting, given they've got members who are cafes and pub owners, that we take this document to them and say, would they like to give us feedback from their members, so then we can reply as a council being members of this organisation, so we get feedback from the people themselves.
Okay, it's just that this is specifically about encroachment on markets.
yeah.
Yeah, I know, but they have talked about that. That's an issue they're quite exercised about.
And also the Traders Association doesn't actually represent all the traders in
No.
the town.
Not all of them, no, but it represents quite a chunk, and they're probably the best group that we've got that represent a significant number.
Would you consider including the market traders into that though?
Definitely, yes. We add that to the proposal.
Up to you guys. Does anybody want to say anything?
Okay,
Well,
Angie, is that,
I mean,
we got a proposal and a seconder for that, haven't we now?
Can I have clarity on the proposal, please?
Yeah, the proposal, we take this to the Traders Association with a view to consulting with their members and inviting them to bring some of the market traders into that meeting to discuss this document and give us feedback so we can reply as members of our traders and pubs and cafes think. And our market traders think, of course.
Of course, just to clarify on that, the document that you're referring to is, because included in this pack is a draft guidance on pavement licensing.
Yeah.
Which I think if we're consulting on with traders, that it's that document should be included, not just this NABMA.
Yeah, that all comes together. Yeah,
That all comes together. So then
Yeah.
what Philip is saying makes sense to, it's not just market traders, it's all traders in the town.
And that's why we initially included it, yes.
Yeah.
Some of the people under the COVID measures will be looking at possibly pavement serving. And we've actually had a discussion with some of the shops already about whether they'd be willing to go put stuff on pavement. Some of the members who are cafes already. So I think it is quite relevant to talk to them about it.
Yeah.
Okay, take a vote then. Councillor Harvey,
yes.
Councillor Howells,
Yes.
Councillor Bannister,
Yes.
Councillor Eakin,
Yes.
Councillor Knight,
Yes.
and Councillor Morris.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. So
Chairman. Before we move on, can we
Go
just
ahead.
review the items on the agenda and identify ones which we can defer, because we're not going to cover everything that we've got down in the time we have remaining.
happy to do that. Well, we've got the next item 17, which is neighbourhood development plan. I think we should talk about that. Update on traffic management, we can defer that. Fastershire, I think we can probably defer that. Response to NHS Hereford in respect of X-ray service in Ledbury. Can we defer that one as well?
Yeah, I think so.
devolved services, well, we're already got that can be, we can leave that one to the working party to take a look at to begin with, which brings us down to corporate plan. So we could keep the corporate plan on there. Slow ways.
Defer slow ways.
And defer slow ways, exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Have we got that, Angie?
Yep.
That should keep us well within our
Good. If we keep it brief,
Yeah.
I'm presuming that we're just noting the report on the neighbourhood development plan.
Philip, can you give us a report on that?
Yes,
A very brief one.
I just submitted it. I had a word with Carly Tinkler, who's with Liz and myself, a witness. We've agreed that some of the work we're doing now would be very useful for the neighbourhood plan. And we said once, soon as we get the inquiry over, and given we've now set the group up, we would get a meeting organised to start things rolling again before or by the end of July, early August, and carry on with the landscape capacity and sensitivity analysis, which work was in progress, and we'll pick that up as soon as we start again. So the plan is to have a meeting towards the end of July, early August.
Good. Can I make a request, please? The original neighbourhood plan group that was dissolved actually had a timetable of meetings that was published publicly that
Yep.
they stuck to.
Yeah.
You know, we haven't done that this time round. Could I please request that we do have a timetable of meetings set up so that we can get them in our diaries, and we can try and avoid clashes with other things, and that we can publicise them to members of the public who may be interested in participating. Whichever way the viaduct site inquiry goes, it simply reinforces how important it is that we try and get, you know, a fit for purpose neighbourhood plan in place sooner rather than later, and hopefully it will, whichever way it goes, encourage people to, you know, take a bit more of an interest. But you know, we have to have a timetable for this and have regular meetings.
We did have a rolling programme of 3 meetings at a time. So we did have a programme of always 2 ahead of the one we were at, and then we always set another one. So there were always 3 going forward.
They weren't publicised on the town council website or anything for people to be able to.
They were in the
see.
minutes at the time.
Yeah, well, saying it's on the website.
Yeah, I agree. That's a good advance. So of course we didn't have the website initially, but we got that set up. So there was a problem, we couldn't put it on, but that has now been set up. Yeah, I quite agree.
Okay.
As well, yeah.
Okay, so we're deferring everything coming up apart from item number 22, which is a corporate plan, pages 1082 to 1114. So who wants to kick us off on that one?
Councillor Harvey would like to speak.
Just hang on a minute. Right, Councillor Harvey, please go ahead.
Yeah, well, first of all, I'd like to welcome that we've got this. I think it's a huge step forward, and hopefully alongside the organisational review that's going on at the moment, it will take us to a place where, when we've got agreed work programmes that are aligned to our budget, we'd be in a position to look at delegating powers to committees to actually deliver their work programmes once they're adopted by full council within the budget provision that's been made, and that will I think speed things up and get things moving along a lot more quickly. So I think it isn't immediately obvious to people from the outside looking in, but this is actually you know, a real step forward in being able to up the pace at which we can get things done on the town council without needing to wait to you know, approve every decision that a committee recommends at a full council meeting.
Yeah.
So I think that's excellent. You know, I'd really like to say thank you and well done to everybody who was involved in putting this together. I know we had workshops with involving all members of staff and councillors, and you know, it's a living document. So you know, we're not saying that it's perfect, and it will have to flex and move with the times. But it's an excellent place for us to be starting from. I'd like to propose, given the hour and given the scale of the task in terms of putting a work programme together for the committee, that we actually schedule some meetings that are not committee meetings but are meetings of councillors to actually look at the content of the programme over the summer, so that we can come back in September with some proposals for what the work programme should be. Maybe, given that it will be September by then, given the COVID impact on the council, that we maybe look ahead 18 months, and that will help with budgeting as we go through the autumn.
Are you proposing the formation of a task and finish group?
Yes, we can do it that way.
If that's the proposal, then I'll second it, and I'd like to be on it.
Could I just speak to that a second? Given that it was, when I became mayor last year, it was the #1 objective I set for the year that we should achieve. I totally echo everything Liz says, and thank equally, I mean, Angie did an awful lot of work in organising and getting it out with everything else that was on. So I think she should be congratulated on achieving that in the year that we agreed we'd get it done. That's the first thing. And I was on similar lines to what Liz has said. I was thinking that in the same way as we get the risk assessment looked at regularly, and we look at a particular chunk of it, I think to make it happen, a town plan doesn't happen because they consider everything. I would like to see that in this proposal that we've set up of having a task and finish group, that we actually agree to look at a particular topic in each of those meetings and agree some specific actions. Because having been in the town plan, like I say, there's so much stuff going on. It's very difficult to get specific actions. And I think what we should do is look at it as in that context, like we do with the risk assessment. We look at it specifically, we agree actions and amendments, and then it's changed. Something similar with this, I think, would be the way forward.
I'm not too sure how we would implement that. If we got a task and finish group, can't that task, that's the task of the
task and finish group,
yeah.
But then specific tasks
yes.
on each of.
Yes, so they would, the task and finish group would determine what those tasks would be.
Yeah.
Well, for me, sorry, Councillor Harvey, please go ahead.
No, sorry, you go ahead, Chairman. I've had a say.
Okay, I just wanted to say that what I really hope that this corporate plan enables us to do is to accelerate the way in which the amount of work that we can get done in the council. I'd like to see that everybody sees this Ledbury Town Council as a council that gets things done on the ground, and I hope that this corporate plan enables us to do that in an accelerated way.
Yeah.
That's the key thing for me.
Yeah.
This plan should deliver actions on the ground that the council can get done.
I think, Councillor Harvey, you're sort of suggesting that if you have the task and finish groups, it's about assigning each of those elements from that corporate plan to different committees.
Yes.
I think. My understanding. Yeah.
I think, but some may be owned across committees.
Yes.
I mean, it hasn't been written, you know, to stovepipe the corporate plan into our committee structure. We've taken a more holistic view than that, and I think that's absolutely right. But you know, there are some objectives which are, you know, obviously with one committee or another, and then there are some which are broader than that, and you know, we'll need to agree how to you know, which you know, which area is going to lead on those and how we're going to coordinate. But I think as a first pass, looking, each committee looking at, the total plan and saying where they feel they've got a contribution to make in delivering the objectives and the key actions that have been identified. And thinking about those in a timeline sense in terms of what we do this year, what we prepare to do next year, and what early work we might need to do. Making sure there's budget available so that we've got the money as well as the time set aside to do things, and basically put a work program together that can then be a rolling program that we can update, as Councillor Howells has said, in the way that we review the risk register, and that we we maybe look quarterly at the work programme, and keep pushing it out and making sure that we're delivering near term, and that we're adding on the back end so that we can keep it going, and that way it'll feed into the budgeting process, and it'll also give us some focus and some structure.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think it will give us that structure to enable us to get things done in a much more coherent way. And that's the great thing about it for me.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Any other comments to be made on this right now?
I'm sorry, I thought you were moving on. Not on that one, no.
Well, that's the last item now, Philip.
I know, I just wanted
the proposal is that we set up a task and finish group, and we get some dates sorted. Have we voted on that?
Not yet.
Oh, we haven't voted on that, sorry. Yeah.
Councillor Harvey?
Yes.
Councillor Howells?
yes.
Councillor Bannister?
Yes.
Councillor Eakin?
Yes.
Councillor Knight?
Yes.
And Councillor Morris? Okay, so far, Councillor Eakin, you said you'd be interested in being part of that task and finish group. Anybody else?
Yeah.
Yes, I would.
Definitely, yes.
Yeah, I mean, in a sense, it kind of needs to be a whole committee task.
I think so, yeah.
It does. It does. So,
Yeah.
It was a point of information I wanted to raise, Chairman, actually. I just wanted to check, under the neighbourhood plan, we had the minutes of the meeting of 2nd of March. Did we actually pass those, or did we just skip over them? I'm a bit unsure, because I gave a verbal report on the update, but we had the minutes of the meeting, and I wonder whether you need those approved, Angie, or not.
They're notes, they're not necessarily minutes, are they? So they're just noted. They're noted by this committee, yeah.
So we did note them, so we formally done that. Okay.
just the wrong date on there. It says 2nd of March 2010.
Okay.
I'm
That's it.
presuming that's 2020.
It was, yes.
Let's hope.
Yes, it was. They're right on the actual minutes.
Yeah, okay. Fair enough.
Okay.
So have we finished on that item?
Yes, that was a point of information, that's all.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. So date of next meeting?
13th of August.
Yeah.
All right. See you all.
13th of
Good night.
August. That.
Rightio.
Okay, good night. Apologies, we've run over there a bit. I know I've been pushing everybody to try and get to the time, but we failed by 20 minutes, so my apologies.
Okay, but we were absolutely spot on in terms of the time extension.
Yes.
We covered a lot
Good
of
meeting.
ground
meeting.
as well, which was great.
Yeah.
Very constructive. Well done.
Yeah.
Thank you
Okay.
very much, councillors.
Okay.
Thank
See you
you.
guys.
Yeah.
Councillor Knight, you're going to come in and see me tomorrow, yeah?
Yes, I'll
Yeah.
be in. What time's best?
I think 12 o'clock, because I've got
12
that
o'clock.
Zoom meeting at 10. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fingers
Okay,
crossed
12
my
o'clock.
internet will work.
I'll bring everything with me. Okay.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay,
Thank you, Andrew.
We'll
Thank
see
you.
in the morning,
Bye-bye.
Liv, won't we? Bye.
Bye-bye, Phil.
Going to end it for you, so
Okay.
you're all just going to vanish now.
Okay,